Yeah. Usually, sometimes last week I thought I forget recording. Luckily, we did the recording. Okay, let's continue. So today, what we do is we get into the discussion of what is it? We just started this from class topic. Just a minute. I think it's opening time. What we did is we had discussed about creating multiple objects and all that, but I'll just try to do that one more time and I'll show you how to set data through parameterized method. I think we already did that in the last class. How to set data to objects, all that is discussed. I think we had a discussion. Why it's taking time, I don't know. Yeah, now we are good. So this is the one we did in the last class. Like, if you see here, let me just 1 minute. Sorry. So now this is what we discussed in the last class. Come on. I think it is taking little slow. Not sure why. Yeah, should be working now. Yeah, this is the program we did. Car demo, how to create car class, and then you can see here how to create car class.
Parameterized
Yeah, how to
object.
add,
Oh,
how to, yeah, yes, Sunita. How to
yeah.
add methods to a class, and then how to add instance variables inside a method, and then how to declare parameterization inside classes. All this we had discussed in last class, and you can see how to create multiple objects for a class. And if you create multiple objects, like we had discussed like how to set uh, different data to each object. I hope you are clear. Like I told you clearly the last session. Objects
Yeah, I
hold
understand. Actually, it's like Java only, right? Like
almost. See the
almost. Yeah.
OOP is doesn't change from any language. It's almost same as C++ or Java or C Sharp. Anything is same. Generally, purpose of object is to hold data, but to construct that object, we need a class. And to do some operations, we need methods in that. Now here, for a car class, if you want multiple car details, we should create multiple car objects. And each car object hold one car details. And this is something, if you compare it with the database, each car object is one row in a database. And your class acts as one table in a database. And for table, we can have multiple rows of data, right? Say, similarly, here also, for a class, we can create how many of our objects you want. You can create 10 objects, 100,000, 1 lakh, 1 crore, any number of objects. Even that's what happens in a real environment. And then you can print it as per your need and necessity. So this is the quick idea about classes and objects, and then parameterization inside classes, and then passing data, all that. So next one. Another thing is understanding about variables. Variables in language, not just only Python. Generally, any language we need to understand variables. Of course, here we focus on Python variables and types of different variables what we have in Python. Already we know about some of this, but still I would like to have a quick this thing to all of us. So now if you see, when we talk about variables, just a minute. Here I am talking about static. Static we'll talk about it after that. So generally in any program, in any language, there will be different types of variables. Even Python has that. So one is we know global variables, because Python supports both functional as well as OOP. Right? Functional means like more of implementing everything with functions. And OOP means implementing with classes and objects. So in that process, all these variables are used in Python, global variables, local variables. Okay, and then it also uses instance variables. Okay, these are all different types of variables. Instance variables, local variables, global variables. Global means we had already discussed this. We know while discussing functions, we discussed this global and local. You must be clear with that. An instance thing, we had a very detailed discussion in the last session that should give you a clear picture like what is instance, why we call them as instance already. Right? These are part of instance variables are part of object. Local variables are declared inside class or parameters. Sorry, local variables are declared inside a method or parameters as a to a method. They are local. Global means they are outside completely. They are outside in the directly in the file, your Python file. They are not declared either inside method or either inside class. Of course, even in class in Python, if you want to add something, it is possible only through functions. But if you declare variable directly in a file, suppose if you see this is a file. If you just declare a variable here, you can see, and this scope is a global scope. And if it is somewhere inside class, then that scope changes. Then it's not global. It might be what is that instance or it might be static. It depends on where you place that variable. And here, if you see one more is of course I can add static variables, also class variables. Otherwise, one more is a static variable or class variable. This is another type of variable. Understanding all these are important if you want to if you are becoming any Python developer or if you want to implement any automation. So fine, the first three are familiar to us. We don't need to focus much on them. Let's jump to the static variables and static methods or class variables and class methods. Of course, two different types are there with slight changes, but we'll quickly discuss that. When we talk about static variables, what is a static variable? Right, this is the quick question. Simple, friends. You can see here the definition is very much clear. A variable declared inside a class and outside a function is called a static or a class. Okay, got it right, friends? Just a minute, friends. Sorry, friends. By looking at definition, we can easily understand, friends. What is it? Variables inside a class and outside a function. Right. We can call them as static or class variables. And the difference is simple. If it is instance variable, we have a separate copy for each object. Like if you get any doubt with that, suppose you take this example. All these variables are instance variables. You can see here inside car class, inside the set data method, this name, this color, this price. All these are instance. And you know why they are instance. We had a detailed discussion. These are declared with self and these variables goes into object. So what they are declared with the self keyword and these are stored inside object. I hope we did a debugging. Also, I have shown you with the diagram, all that explained with diagram. For example, let us take a quick example. Like, mm, just a minute, friends. If you have a paint, I'll open paint here. Just to show you. Or else showing in Canva should be easy for me, right? Let me open Canva. More than these things. Canva is best. Okay. Let's open projects and just take explain. Just a minute. Yeah. So this should be fine for us, whiteboard. So now, sorry for taking your time. Now, if you see here, let us take objects here. Yeah, now should be fine. Suppose, right, we already clear for this car. If you see this, you have three objects. Just to show you a quick difference between static variables and instance variables, and to make sure to make you understand it in easy and simple approach. I'm taking this one. So what we do is assume that we created three objects. You know, right? How these three objects look like. We created three objects, these three, right? For car. And if you come here and then if you try to keep this, just a minute, we can use any shapes here. Square. Right. So otherwise, yes, we can directly add data here. No problem. We don't need squares now. Or text. Let me take text. Yeah. So these are the three objects which we created. One for yeah. You can see now. One for bench, one for RD, one for this one. Let us see how it look like internally, right? So let's do that. So if you see this for these three objects, already we know we had a detailed discussion on that. Here what happens, three car objects are created. One for car, one for car 2, one for car 3. Don't worry about the beautiness. Of course, Canva we can use to create beautiful diagrams, no problem. But I'm just going directly with this one. It's sketch here. So assume that this is car object. So we can, this is car and this is car 2 and this is car 3. Just giving you a quick, already we know this. I believe we had discussed. Point 1. When we create multiple objects, you know very well, each object has a unique address. Usually it is in hexadecimal, but I'm just taking integer for our convenience. So we have three objects and every object has a unique address, right? No duplicates for addresses. So this is 100. Assume that this is 101. This is 102. We have three different objects like this. Now, when you create objects, what is there inside object? Already we know. Object holds, object stores, or instance variables exist inside object. What instance variables means? These variables. I know this is a little repetition, but try to understand it clearly, friends. These variables, these are all instance variables. These are why we call them instance means because they are inside object. And these variables exist where they exist. They exist. Correct. Where did it go? Yeah, here. So this name, this color, color of car, okay, this price. All this exists inside object. That's why these are called instance variables. This name means something like bench. We had discussed this, and then this one, some other values for color and price. Similarly, we have same variables in this object. Similarly, same variables in this object. No, you create 1,001 crore objects. All those objects will have the same data. I mean, same data in sense this name, this variables is same, but values changes. That is fine. So now car is pointing to 100, car 2 is pointing to 101, car 3 is pointing to 102, and we have data in each of these objects. Now the point is here when we create multiple objects, here you can see here these three objects are there. So we created three objects. We have, and if you look at this object, each object, what is that? Every object has its own data. And we have three objects. Three objects has three different sets of data. This is what happens with instance variables. Instance variable is what is it? It is a separate copy for each object. You create 100 objects. Same instance variable will be, we have 100 instance variables. Suppose you create 100 objects. How many names will be there? You have 100 names. And then again, how many colors will be there? You have 100 color variables. Okay. How many price variables will be there? Again, you have 100 price variables, right? So altogether, how many variables here? Altogether, we have 300 variables. This is what happens. 300 variables are there for this 100 objects. And each object has its own copy of instance variable. Of course, this variables are same, but data might change. It depends on your need and necessity. Some objects may have same data and some might be having different data, or all objects can have a different data. It's up to you. And objects are mini containers and you can use them as you like. I think you understood the architecture of object, right? And how they look like and what they stores inside. If you want, you can, all three objects can have same data or they can have different data. Usually we try to have a distinguished data, means not same data, but different data for each object. So that's how objects are used. Okay, fine. But finally, the conclusion is here. Instance variable means, just to show you this, I just drew this. Instance variables means separate copy for each object. One copy for this car object, one copy for car 2 object, one copy for car 3 object, like that. I hope this is clear for all of you. Right? But static is not like that. If you ask me about static, suppose you see, so static is not part of objects. If you look at this diagram, instance variables are inside object. You can see all this. Even here also we have name and then the other variables here. And same three variables exist here also. And if you ask anyone ask a question, where this instance variables exist? Instance variables exist inside object, not anywhere. They are stored inside object. But now the topic is what? Topic is about static variables. So if it is a static variable, you see here only one copy of memory is allocated. How many copies? One copy. And that too, they are not inside object. Speaking, they are not inside object. Somebody is pinging me. Just a minute. Yeah, got it. Yeah, they are not inside object. If you look at this diagram again, so let's see. Suppose static variable in this program, let us see. Where did we declare? Let not that one, sorry. So this program you take. You can see here. I just declared only variable here, and that too, no, we didn't add any methods. And still, we didn't add any methods to this class. Suppose you take this example. Let me talk clearly. So let's take one more file here. OOP. Under OOP, what you do is right click and then new. And then what shall I take? Python file, right? And then what shall I name this? Static demo. Okay, let me take it as static demo. Okay, so just add a simple program. Just create a simple program class test colon, and then inside that just declare a variable a equal to 10. That would be enough. Now, what is this variable? This is now we can consider this. We can consider it as static variable. And here, like in Java or like in C Sharp, we don't have a static keyword. Maybe if you are a Java programmer or Java developer, maybe you can ask a question. We have a static keyword? In Python, we don't have anything as a static keyword, but only thing is depends on scope. We conclude that it is a static variable. Depends on scope, we decide, right? The something is a static variable. Scope in sense inside class, outside function or method, and such variables are static variables. I hope you are clear. Now we just added one variable here. Now if you should answer this, what is the scope of this variable? This is it static, instance, local, or global? If someone asks a question, quick question, what's your answer, friends? What's your quick this thing? Maybe you can answer in the chat box, friends. What is the scope of this variable now? What is it? Is it static? Is it instance? Is it local? Is it global? What is the scope of this? Please answer in the chat box. Maybe. So this is no doubt this will be a static variable. So what is it, friends? It is a static variable. Now that's one thing. Second thing is, say if you look at this now, what is static variable? It is not inside a class. It is a static variable. Static variable is not part of object, but part of class. And here one important point, observe this carefully. Static variables are not part of object, right, friends? Then we don't need to create object to access static variables. So point is simple. Static variable is not part of object. If something is not part of object, then we don't need to create object to call that member. Is this point clear? So that is the important thing. Then what is it? Then we can call it directly using class name. So that is important point. So I hope you are clear with this. So let us summarize static variables here. So here the scope is inside class and outside function. That is one thing. Second thing here, for a static variable, unlike this instance members, we don't have a separate copy for each object. But here we have only one copy for that variable, and that one copy is shared by all objects. I'll show you that with diagrammatic analysis. So this is that's why we can call these static variables as shared variables. You can see here shared variables. And these are not part of object. So we don't need to create object to access static variables, but we can access them directly using class name. Maybe if you ask me how do we do that, I'll just show you. It's so simple. Is it before that? Are these statements clear? Is what we should see. Are you clear with these statements, friends? Did you understand the statements? Like this one copy, I'll show you. I'll give a detailed analysis. Now, if you say this is a static variable, if it is instance, we should create object and call it. But if it is static, we can directly call it something like you can see here print test dot. You can see a. Sorry, friends. So the value of a is, you can see here the value of a is. Okay, maybe if you want, you can add that. What shall we say? That format method. But for now, I am just moving quickly with this. Now run this now. You see, and you can see we can see the output here. We can see 10 here. Am I creating any object here? If you look at this program, we are not creating any object. Suppose you create object now. Suppose you create some test. T1 equal to new test. Okay, this is object one. Sorry, you don't need this. This is a Java approach. This is okay now. And new is not required here. Suddenly I jump up to Java syntax. So you created three object friends. See here. So means it look like this. If you look into if you look into objects now, these three objects. How many objects are there? Three objects. But the point is this static variable is not part of object. It's part of class. And by looking at the scope, we can decide this is a static variable. How can you say it is a static? Because it is inside class, not inside method. If something is inside method and with self keyword, it is instance. Inside method without self keyword, local. Right? And if variable is not inside method itself, then it might be a static one. Now in this case, no doubt this acts as static because it is directly inside class, not inside method or with any self keyword. I'll give you a detailed analysis in today's session. By the time we finish this, we'll get a clear picture about each and every variable. So this is the idea. Now we created three objects, right? And now how it look like? These three objects look like this, right? So you can erase all this. Let me just erase all this. We don't need this for now. Now, how many objects are there for us? We have three objects here. What are those three objects? This T1, tested T1. So then again T2, T3, these three objects. Let me just create them. We don't need all that text here. We can directly draw that diagram here. See how many objects are there now? We have three objects. One for T1. Okay. And one for T2 and one for T3. How many objects are there? Three objects. How many static variables are there? Here we have just one static variable, that is a equal to 10. So this is one copy. And how many objects? Three objects. This is T1, this is T2, this is T3. But this time, do we have any instance variables in this class? No instance variables. So these objects are empty. Of course, data is added to objects only when we call that method which has this instance variables declared. Okay, that is a different thing. We already know that. But this is your static variable A. Right. So sorry. I hope you are clear. So now here these three objects are created. For T1, assume that it is 100, 101, 102. T1 is pointing to this one, T2 to this one, T3 to this one. Now three objects look like this. So how many copies of this static variable exist here? Let me add here. This is 10. Three only. Sorry, I told three. Sorry, we have only one copy of static variable. You can say as per this program. And then how many objects are there? Three objects. Now all these three objects has to use the same has to share the same static variable. T1 should share this, T2 should share this, T3 also should share this. All these three objects should share the same copy of static variable. Unlike instance, we don't have a separate copy for each object. So here we have just one copy, and this one copy is shared by all objects. So this is the simple idea about this statement. What is it? Only one copy of memory is allocated to a static variable and shared by all objects. I hope you are clear now. So this is a simple idea. Suppose you see now, you try to say T1 dot. You can see still A in this. But if you try to print it, right? Suppose you say A equal to 10. Again, I'll just show you here. First thing, point one. This is static variable, and we are printing that variable in a static way using class name. And these objects are needed to access, not needed. These objects are not needed to access static numbers. Now, but still objects can use static data. No problem with that. Now we have created three objects here. Now these three objects look like this. And there is one copy of static variable. And if you want, all these three objects can share this static variable, right? That is fine. Now you can see now we are trying to print, look into the object now. What is that? This T1. So print T1 dot A. Again, you can say I'm trying to call the static variable using these objects with this reference T2 dot A, and third one, what are the friends? T3 dot A. Okay. I'm trying to print all this static variable using object as well. Using reference of object, and still they are accessible. Still we are able to invoke them, or we are able to call them or access them. Now let's print it. No doubt about it. You can see here. Means what? When you create objects, this static variable is also available for objects. That is one more important point. Still, of course, it is a static variable. So you have gone to a hotel. There is a server in a hotel. That server can provide service to 10 customers or 100 customers. But right, means if a server is allocated to 3 different customers, assume that each object is 1 customer, then that might be working for those 3 customers till those customers are there in the hotel, and still they were doing their maybe dinner or breakfast or whatever it is. Once that is done, automatically these objects get deleted. Still server exists, right? Once breakfast is done by the customers, they leave the restaurant and those plates will be cleaned. That's all. But still, who exists there? The server still stays in the hotel, but the customer might leave. There's nothing wrong with that. So here the static variable is same like server here. What is that? It is like global. You can see one person can provide service to multiple customers. Similarly, one variable can be shared by multiple objects. And again, when you create objects, that variable is also, again, you can see here, these objects can operate on that variable. But this time, maybe you can ask a question actually. You told this is one copy and global copy. Global in sense, not the same global variable thing. For at class level, it is a global copy. And this one copy is shared by all objects. And you told this is not part of object, but part of class. But now if you see, when I say T1 dot, it is showing this variable inside object. Then is it part of object? See what happens here is, friends, this is very important, interesting scenario. Generally, static variables are part of class, not part of object. But the static variable can be copied into instance scope, means into this object scope. Like customer, when you go to a restaurant, right? Server can be assigned to customer till that customer is there in the hotel. Once that customer leaves, again server become free and he can service another customer. Until that time he is providing service, he might be in the control of customer. Similarly, you can just think like that. This is a static variable. Usually, the recommended approach is always to access it using class name. But the same static variable also can be copied to object scope. When it is copied to object scope, when we create an object, and for that we don't need to do anything. By default, this can be accessed by objects. This A can be accessed by objects. Unlike instance variables, we don't need to call any method to get created them, because this is already existing. This is in a class scope. So once you load class, automatically this variable is available for all objects. That's why this static variable, which is in class scope, is copied to this objects scope when we create these objects. So that is an interesting thing. Just remember this. Maybe if you ask a question why they are inside objects, you told they belong to class and we access them using class name. Simple. When we create objects, the same variable which is there in static scope can be copied to instance. Suppose now we do one thing. So I try to say T1 dot A equal to another interesting update. I set it to 11. The 10. Otherwise, what I'll do? T1 dot A equal to T1 dot A plus 1. I just incremented that A by 1 in which object? T1 object. Okay. Now, what do we do? After incrementing, let us see What would be value in T1? You can say I'm printing the same, all this. What would be value in T2? What would be value in T3? When I run this, you should observe one interesting thing here. Let's run this now. You can see here, this time, this is very interesting. See, you can see here, what is it? Only for T1 objects, the value of this static variable is 11. You can see here now. Now it's 10. I incremented this A on which object? On T1 object. Then when we print all these three objects, T1, T2, T3, in this case, you can see here, this static variable A in T1 object is only updated, or only in T1 object is updated, and remaining values are as is 10 and 10 only, which is the actual value. Are you following, friends, or am I trying to confuse you? Because this is a very deeper topic. Most of the you go and search in the YouTubes outside. I'm not saying we are doing something this thing, but this won't be there for you to analyze. So point is simple. What is it? Here when we create objects, this same static value also is copied to instance scope. When it is instance scope, it behaves like an instance variable. So when you update this A on T1, that update happened only for which one? For T1 object, but not for T2 and T3. If it is a one copy and if it is shared by all three objects, a change in T1 should also have impact for T2 and T3. I modified T1 and then that A should become 11. Yes, that is done. Now when I call same A on T2, it should give 11. A on T3 should give 11. But when you look at output, 11, so it became 11 only for T1, but for T2 and T3 it is still 10 and 10 only. And this is very clearly hence proved. What is proved here? Where this static variable, whatever you declare here, is copied to instance scope, and when you update it on that specific object, that change is happening only for that object, not on the other objects. Maybe you can ask a question. You told this is a static variable, one copy exists. How can one copy is having a different thing here, different behavior? One copy means if any object makes some changes to this, then it should get updated, right? Means my point is, suppose if any object make changes to 10, it becomes 11. Then for all objects, it should be 11, right? Why again 10 for T2 and T3 is the question. First of all, did you get my question? What I am asking you? What is the question? Did you get my question, friends? Right. The static variables, one copy. And for one copy, if you make any change on that one copy, right, this becomes 11 now. Suppose you had incremented this A by 1, then this A became 11, right? Now after that you try to print that A on, you try to call that A on T2 object, T3 object. Still again you can see they are just 10 and 10 here. Now the point is, question is, it should be 11 and 11 for both T2 and T3. Why it is still 10 and 10 is the question, right? Because one copy means any change on that variable should have impact for all other objects. But that is not happening here. Why? Because these are copied to instance scope, and any change happening on that object is impacted only on that object, but not to other objects here. I hope I tried to give you the question, and also I tried to explain the answer. Is this clear to everyone, friends? Right, yes, static acts as a global kind at class level, not at program level. Program level global means it's different thing. I hope you are clear with this. I try to make this is very interesting. You try to go and search for other outside sources. You don't see this kind of deeper analysis. I hope you are clear on this. Right, next one. Maybe again, let me show you the actual static nature. Now you do one thing, right? What do you do? This is your static variable, right? So what we can do is we'll do one thing. Take a method. Take a method. and then def, just a simple count or increment. You take this method is here. And then you just say test dot a equal to test dot. I'm just directly incrementing a static variable here, a plus 1. Not as instance. Even you don't need self this time. Okay, you can ignore self, because of course if you want to call it an object, you need self. No problem. Right, that is fine. Before I add this method, so I'm just giving you a different types of analysis, like the behavior of static variables in different ways. So now we created this an incrementing static variable here, and we created 3 objects, right? And then now if you see, just forget about these things. We already discussed this. Now you got some idea. So how the behavior of static variable, how it works. What if we call it with class name, and what if we call with the in references. And then we have also seen some other use cases here. Okay, leave that. Let me show you this. Now we declared a static variable here, and then declared a method. And this method is incrementing the static variable. Now we created 3 objects. Now what we do, t1 dot increment. I made it instance because if I just remove self keyword, you see here, if I remove self, now remove self. Now you see t1 dot, yeah, if you are able to call it, no problem, increment. T2 dot increment, T3 dot increment, right there. So you see, so this is the, you can see this is not instance method. You can see why this is not instance, because we don't pass any self here. So this is not instance, that is fine. Now what did we do? We declared static variable. We declared a simple method. You can consider this as a static method indirectly, right? This looks like static method because no self. If no self for a method in a class, you can consider that as a static method, no problem. But fine, this method is incrementing this A, and we created 3 objects, and we are calling increment method on these 3 objects. Now, how many copies of static variables are there? 3 copies. Now, what would be the output for t1 dot increment, t2 dot increment, t3 dot increment? Here, what is the output in at line 1? What is the output at line 11, line 12, and line 12, line 13? Could you please answer that in the chat box, friends? What will be your answer here when I call increment here? What will be your answer? Right. Let me run it and we can see the output. So there is an error. What is that error? See here. When I call this directly, what's happening here, friends? It is saying this increment takes 0 positional arguments, but 1 was given. Why? Because when you call a method on reference, by default implicitly it passes a reference that the object to the method. And to hold that object, one variable should exist, that is self here. So put self, it will remove that error. It is asking this method when you are calling increment on references, at least one variable should exist, one argument should exist for this increment. And that argument usually in case of objects or instances is self. So put self now here, this error will be removed. Now when I try to call directly a method like this, you can see an error. So generally we cannot do that directly unless you use some annotation and declare it as a static method. Okay, I'll talk about it when we discuss static methods. But for now, you got it right. Can we declare a method directly without self here in a class? It means the answer is mostly it is no. Under some special cases, we can use annotations and declare. I'll show you all that one by one. But for now, we declare this as instance. Let's run this now. Right. So we didn't print it. Print this. What shall we do now? Print after incrementing. Just what you do is print A. Okay, print A. Now let's try to run this now because we didn't print that A anywhere, right? So what we did in the increment method, we incremented A and we printed. Let's run this now. Name A is not defined. Just a minute.
Test.a.
Test dot.
Test.a.
Yeah, thank you. Here again, see, if I call directly this, it is treating this as a local variable, and without you can see that because name A is not defined. Means if you should set some value to local variable. Now, if you want to call this static variable inside instance method, still we have to do that only with class name. You can see here test.a. I hope you are clear now. That itself gives you a clear idea. It is clearly a static variable. Now, anyhow, okay, we are printing it. Our whatever we are thinking to do, we are doing it now. Let's run this now. Now you can see the output is 11, 12, 13. Right? Why 11, 12, 13? Because this is one copy. For first time you call increment on T1, then this A becomes 10 becomes 11. Again, if you call increment on T2, it's not about object here, this static variable. Now you can see all these objects are sharing this one copy. Sorry. Now you can see in the second case, like what happens? It's already 11. Again, when you call increment, that 11 becomes 12. Like again, in the third case, that 12 becomes 13. See here, 10 becomes 11, 11 becomes 12, 12 becomes 13. Now this itself is a clear proof. We have one copy of static variable and it is shared by objects. You can see here, these three objects. Why? Here for these three cases, we don't get 10, 10, 10, but we are getting 11, 12, 13. Means what each time you call increment, this one copy is getting updated. It is something like this. Let me show you in a quick diagrammatic analysis. Right? So when you call T1 dot, you have increment method, right? You have increment method calling on T1. Okay. Right. This is increment on T1. Again, increment on T2. Here also you are calling increment. You are calling increment on T3. Now for first time, when you say T1 dot increment, sorry, this is not clear. T1 dot increment. When you call this, what happens? This is going to increment this one copy of static variable. This becomes 11. And second time you say T2 dot increment, this 11 gets incremented to 12. And third time you say T3 dot increment, this one. Then this 12 becomes 30. Now here, how many copies are there? One copy. Every time you call this increment, the same copy is getting updated. That's why we have 11, 12 and 13, but it's not like 11 or just 10 or 10 or 10, something like that. I hope you are clear with this. This is clear idea about what is that, how means what exactly the static variable is and how it is stored internally in RAM or in memory. And here this gives you a clear idea. We have one copy is shared by all objects. But the difference between previous example and this example is this time it is exactly behaving in a static way. Suppose if you try to update inside the specific object, that change is applicable only for that object because that static variable is copied to instance scope. Static because that variable got converted to instance scope in the previous case. But now in this case, this variable is in static scope, and when we try to call increment on these three objects, that same static variable is incremented. So that's why we have different outputs for each iteration. You can see here we have 11 for first time, 12 for second time, 13 for third time, like that. Are you following this, friends?
Now
This is
A value is sorry, Manoram. Now
Yeah.
A value is updating. That's what you're saying.
Correct, right?
Yeah. Can you? I have one. Can you print
Yeah.
again test.a? on the last. So
This one, na?
after no after to T3 dot yeah. Can you
Then
print that test.a? What
yeah,
what
if you
value
print
it will come?
it will get that last updated value. What is last updated value here?
13.
That will be printed. That's all.
Oh, okay.
Because by the time we completed incrementing, where it is stopping, with what value it is stopping here?
13.
13. Then that is printed here. Now if you see, you can see 13 for 2 times. Because it's this is only one copy, right, Sunita?
Got it.
So if that is one copy, for first time that one copy got incremented to 11, after that 12, after that 13. That is what the last incremented value. And when you print it again in either by this way or any instance way, still that will be 13 only. You got it?
Got it. Thank you.
Is is that what your doubt or anything else, Sunita?
Yeah, I got it, Manoram.
Okay, got it. Fine. So this is the idea. I tried to go. I actually what happened is we have gone little deep into this. Just we can just simplify, just quickly discuss this inside our class outside method, and we can access it class using class name, and we can see that quick example here. That is over. Static concept is over. That static variable thing. But what we did is we have gone a mile deep into this discussion. Like there is so much of discussion happening. I don't know. But this, if you try to understand it and try to make use of it, it will be very useful to your friends. Just a simple this thing. Now, after this is about static variable. Finally, you should have a clear idea. What is it? If you look at the diagram also, you can see it's clearly showing you here. Right? I hope you are at least making some understanding what I am writing. This is T1 dot increment. This is T2. I'm just quickly writing. And this is T3. And how many copies are there here? One copy. And this one copy is shared by all objects here if you look at it. And generally static variables are not inside object but outside object. Instance variables are inside object. So I hope by now you should be very clear about all different variables now. About static variable, about instance variable, about local variable. Local variable means what? Suppose you see here. This is a method, right? You declare a variable inside this like this. Already we had discussed this in functions topic, but just giving a quick idea even in OOP. Now you declare this A inside this increment, right? Then this is local. Suppose you take B, already A is there as a static. Still, of course, we can have local. If you have A here inside method, this is a local copy. Now when you say test.a, which variable gets incremented, the local one or the instance, the static one? In this case, if you print it, suppose you print two, you have to do two prints. One is direct printing A here inside this increment method. Another printing is test.a. Test.a prints static variable. A just prints only local variable. Now when you run this, you can see now what happened here. So you can see now for first time you are calling increment this one. The value of A is 10. This is printed. Then test.11 is printed. You can see here. This one is coming from here. Why it's got A got the static variable got incremented and it got printed. That is 11. Now the again one more 10 is there. What is this 10? This 10 is this one. Which one? This local variable. This one here. Got it right? So local variable means something declared inside a method. And generally we can access it directly inside method. You can see I'm printing it directly. But if it is static variable, I can't do that. I have to call this static variable in a static way. What is that? Using class name. That's how we call static members. But local variables, we can call them directly. I hope you are clear. You got the difference between these two. Instance means again they are declared with self. See the differences. Suppose you want an instance variable inside this method, just some random instance variable. Then you should say self dot some x equal to some 100. This is now instance variable. Now this simple function has all different variables now. We are trying to use some local, declare local, instance, and then static. We cannot declare static in inside a method, but we can access them inside method because static scope is always this one. I hope you are clear with all this, friends, about all three different variables. Did you get a clear picture on that, friends? Okay, so I hope you should be clear. Next, global means something like this, just giving a quick idea about all different variables. Global means you put some variable here, some right, x equal to, not x, you can take some h equal to some 200. This is global, directly outside class. Right. So this can be invoked by all for classes, all methods, all functions, anything. This is global. Right. So these are all different variables. Global means something declared directly in your file. And local means something declared inside a function or a method inside a class or regular function, any other normal function. Instance means declared with self keyword in a method or a function inside a class. Static means inside class, outside method. But here, like in Java or C++, we don't have a static keyword. But this is based on scope. We can decide that is a static variable. And we have observed many use cases now. So much of discussion happened, but it is too deep. I don't know if I confused or if I give useful information for you. But this is all idea about what, friends? Idea about the static variable and different types of variables. Right. I hope you got a clear picture on that. Did you, friends? So if you think you got a clear idea, please confirm in the chat box, friends. Now, what shall we do now? We are done with static variables. Okay, let's get into the discussion of what is it? Static method. All this now you are clear. I don't need to. These statements are much clear. Static variables. Let's quickly summarize this. How many copies are there for static variables? One copy shared by all objects. And static variables usually not part of objects. They are part of class. And we can call them directly using class name. We don't need to create objects. I hope this is clear. And instance means you know very well. These are part of object and every object can have its own copy of instance variables. And if you want to create, we should create object to call instance members. It might be instance method, instance variable, anything. First, if you should access them or if you should create them, object must be there first. Okay, we should create object to call instance members. And we should call instance members usually through object or object reference. This is all discussed and we know about it. So now stepping to the next topic, static functions. What is a static function? We know functions, right? We already discussed number of times we have used functions. Since beginning of OOP, we are using functions again and again. Static function is simple like any other function, but the only thing is it is declared with a decorator. Decorator means something declared with @ symbol. That is called decorator. I think I discussed about decorator even while discussing functions. Okay, if you declare a method with this decorator static method, then it becomes a static method. @ static method. So decorator we should use to declare a static function is @ static method. And here again, this static method is not part of object, but part of class. Maybe you can ask me a question. If it is not part of, how can you prove it is not part of object? It is so simple, right? If it is not part of object, you don't need to create object to call that method or variable. You can call them directly using class name. I hope you are clear with that. So what is static method? It's something declared with decorator @ static method. Like any other method, it is also a function. but declare with the with this annotation or with this decorator @ static method. And these are not part of object again. We'll see that with the example, okay? And you can see if it is not part of object, we can call them directly using class name. I hope you are clear with this, friends. And this is how we declare static. General function, just put declare this decorator on top of it. It becomes a static method or a static function. Right? I hope you are clear with that. Suppose it's a simple, quick thing to remember. So before, when you are at home, you don't need to wear any tag to prove that you are a father or a husband or anything like, something. But when you are going to office, definitely what is that? If you are like a function, when you are going to office, you need that tag in your neck. You need to wear tag and go to the office. And that tag makes you an employee, right? It's adding something more to you. For a normal person, as soon as you put tag in your this thing, you are getting converted to an employee. Same thing here also. If you put this decorator, then this method is getting converted to a static method. Okay. And generally you can ask a question. Okay, this is all fine. We are very clear, Manoram. But why? What is the purpose of static method? We already know functions and we know the importance use of functions. Why again a static method then? Static method usually is used to invoke static variables. Generally, we use in static methods to invoke static variables. I hope you are clear. Right, you can see here now, if you ask a question, static functions are used to invoke actually. What is it? Are used to invoke, I can say, or call static variables. That is one thing. Second thing, the static functions are used to implement utility logic. Utility means something mathematical, something your all this mathematical means that we have so much of use cases, so many of use cases with maths itself. If you want to build any utilities means which we use again and again, like implementing some mathematical logic or connecting to some databases. All this kind of functions, we call them as utilities. Doing some calculations. These are all utilities. Implementing some business logic. Right. So something specific, we implement that with static methods. I hope you are clear, friends. That is the quick idea. So I hope you got some clarity with static methods. What is static method? Declared with the decorator @ static method. Generally, we declare it on top of any method. And here we don't use any special variables inside like self or anything with static methods. We don't use self here with static methods. Generally, static methods are used to access static variables and also used to implement some utility logic. Utility can be a mathematical logic or business logic or something, or a database logic, or it can be anything. So now you can see this is a quick example. Let us just try to implement the static method and see. And also important point is if it is a static method, we can call them directly using class name. We don't need to create object because static variable or static method or any static member, they don't belong to object. And when something doesn't belong to object, there is no point of creating objects. Unless and until if object want to access static members, it is a different story. But the point is, static members are not part of object. Server is not part of customer, simply speaking, friends. If you go to a hotel, you have a server servicing to you. That doesn't mean that we own server. Restaurant owns the server. That is the point. Right? Only for that time being, he will be with us. Same concept, same thing is applicable for objects. Object doesn't own static variables, but they are part of class, like something restaurant. Objects can use them for some time, but they cannot own those variables as as they own instance variables. I hope this is clear. It's very simple thing to understand. Now, we can generally recommended way to call static members is using class name. What name? Using class name. Now, let us quickly create a small program to test these static methods, right? So again, I create a static demo2 and just take a class test, or else anything test should be fine. Declare one variable a equal to 10. You can declare as you like, friends. Now we are declaring a static method at the rate. You can see here static method decorator is there. Under that, define some okay, some m1 method name. I just put it as m1. Just simple method. That's all. We are not implementing any utility logic here, any connectivity logic or any mathematical logic here. Just trying to print this a here. You can see when I print a, this time I didn't get any error. Suppose if it is instance method, it won't work. You can see I remove this. Let me make this instance method. You can see here. Let me put it as self. When I put self, immediately we get error. Why? This is instance method. Instance method cannot access static member directly. And if it should access static member inside instance method, we should, the only way possible for us is through class name. You can see we can create a class like this. Or else by creating object. There is another way. By creating object. There is another way for that. If not by class name, you can create object of that class, something like some t1 equal to test. Because you know, right? We can access static variable even through object. So now this is possible. You can say that t1 dot a. This is another way of calling static variable. Through this is an instance approach. But if you want to call, this is one approach. Another approach is if you want to call static variable inside instance method, directly it's not possible. Either we should create object of that class and call that static variable. This is one approach. Or else, what is the other approach? We have to call the static variable using class name. Something like this, two approaches. Either call with class name or create object and call static variable. Right, friends? So that is the simple idea. But anyhow, let's jump to our. So this will work for us. Okay, this approach is fine. But now get back to. So I hope you got clarity, right? About if it is instance method, can an instance method access static variable directly? What's your answer? Answer is no. But can it indirectly access static variable? Yes, there are two approaches. Either by you calling static variable directly using class name inside instance method, or else by creating object of that class. Those are the two approaches. You can choose whichever you think it is the best approach. Always calling with class name is recommended, best practice, but still we have two approaches here. So you can follow any one of that. Okay. Now let's jump to our discussion static method. Now I just removed that self there and then put our static method here. Okay. Now this is one. Now here we don't need to call in a static way because this method is static. A static method can access static variable directly inside that. So I removed that class name now. Still we don't have. Do we have error here still? Let me see. Okay, let's do one thing. Are we having error? Yeah, seems like we have to even inside this we should call in a static way. Inside we should call with class name. Directly if I access, it's getting error. Sorry, friends. Okay. Because this is not called right. Maybe you can do one thing. Test dot m1. When I run this, you can see you get an error. What is that error? Name A is not defined because Still it is treated as local. Again, why this error is, if you directly try to print something, still the scope of this is a local and not static. So that's why always, if even in static method, if you should access static variable, we should call them in a static way, that is using class name. Now this will work. Why this without class name didn't work? Because this becomes local. The scope changes. So that's why we get an error. And that too, why error means we didn't initialize it with any value. And when you print a local variable directly without initializing, you get error. Maybe if you ask me, suppose you say something a equal to 10, that error will be gone. Now you declared and initialized. You got it right. And if you print it directly, it is not treated as this static variable, but this is treated as a local variable. That's why this error. Then you ask me a question, how do we access this static then? We already know, right? How do we access static? We access using class name. So that is a standard phenomena. So what we should do, we should say test.a. This is how we should call this. Then you can ask me, you told static method can access static variable directly. Yeah, that is what it is doing. You can see, right? It is accessing directly, but class name should be there. If you don't use that, again, that thinks that A is a local and get an error if you don't declare it. Okay, finally call this method now and run this. Now you can see we got output 10 here. So finally, this is the static concept. Now you can see this M1, we are calling directly with class name. Here we don't have any objects. So that is what happens if members are static. We don't need to create object to access static members. But if it is instance, without object, it's not possible to call any instance members or create instance members. I hope you are clear, friends. Do you understand? Is that clear for you about all the static variables, static methods? How this static variables gets converted into instance scope, right? And all different pros and cons. We had discussed so many. Can we access static variables inside instance methods and all that? And we also had a very detailed discussion about different types of variables, global, local, static, and instance variables. All that is discussed. So this is all about static topic. Yes, we manipulated static variables into instance scope. Yeah, even we had that detailed discussion of that. Okay, but it's a little deeper, but yeah, it's good to know all those stuff. Are you good now, friends? Got some clear picture on static topic, static variables, static methods, and all different types of variables. And still, if you have any questions, you can ask me. No problem.
Manohar, for these static methods, we don't have self related. We should not use it.
We should not. Suppose you put here. If you have
self,
a doubt,
it is not. Yeah, it is not considering.
Put self. Immediately, you can see
it is giving error. Yeah, it is giving error.
Okay. Now I don't see error. Let us run this now. Yeah, you can see now, right?
Correct. It is not accepting the. Static methods not accepting the instance related.
Actually, what's happening is this is, if you declare as instance, then it will accept object as a parameter. What it expects?
Object.
That object is passed when you say, when you call it with reference. Suppose you create something like T1 equal to test, and then okay, and then in this case, when you say T1.M1, this will work. But this is how we should call instance methods, only through object. After creating object and on object reference, we can call instance methods. Now, this again became instance method. Now this is no more a static method, and this decorator is useless for us.
Yeah, whenever we use self, like an self is an instance, right? So for this instance, we need to create an object, and with that object, we can access the static method.
Correct. But again, it's no more a static thing. It loses the static nature.
Act like a static, but it will take like a normal classic class related one.
Correct.
I
That's
mean
all.
class methods. Yeah.
If you put self, that static
The
decorator doesn't have any impact.
any impact. Yeah.
Again, you have to call it in a static way. You can see there, right?
Yeah.
Now,
Correct.
suppose
Yeah,
you see, suppose you put self here. I didn't run this, right? Let me run it now and see. And still,
still it is getting.
why? Because he maybe 1 minute. One required positional argument we are passing T1
Yeah,
test.
same error it is coming.
Okay. Then test.a should be fine. We are calling in static way only. But
Okay,
still,
that
this
is
is not
correct.
working. You can see, right? Why? Because might be because of M1 missing positional
Required
argument self.
positional argument self should be there.
But we are passing this one. I don't think again T1.M1 implicitly passes that because of the decorator. So because it will be ambiguous now. Now it is working. See there. Now when we remove decorator, it's working. So, but anyhow, this is an ambiguous thing, Harish. Generally, if it is static method, keeping self with static method doesn't have any meaning. It's actually ambiguous declaration, Harish.
Yeah.
So always generally if it is static method, don't try to make it instance again.
Instance, yeah, using self. Yeah.
Okay. Again, it becomes ambiguous and it leads to errors like this. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's all. Any more questions?
For static variables, what is the scope inside the class and it will be outside of the class or
It is inside class only. See, these
inside class
static
only?
and instance belongs to OOP, object oriented programming, and the scope of static variable is class scope. What is that?
Class, inside
Class. So maybe I'll write here. If needed, we can write here. Just a minute. See, when we talk about
by using the object also we are calling outside, right? Is it possible to call outside of the class?
Okay, I got your point. See, class scope instance, it doesn't mean that it should be accessed only inside a class.
Uh-huh.
You got my point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are multiple scopes when you are working with programming. Let me talk about that. Method scope. Method scope means this is visible only for that method. So, like local variables. If it is local variable are visible only to methods, only with to that function. You cannot access it outside directly. So this is local method scope. So usually local variables have method scope, means they are visible only to that method. Next one, second thing is a global scope. Global scope means you know about this. This members or these global variables, they are accessible anywhere within that file. Okay, within that module otherwise. Such that module scope or global scope is nothing but we call them where we can access them anywhere throughout that module is global scope, and usually global variables has that global scope. And one more is what object scope. What is it? Object scope. Object scope means these variables exist inside object, but they can be accessed anywhere. Inside class, outside class, anywhere. Is that clear, Sunita? So this is generally instance variables have object scope. And these variables exist inside object, but of course we can access them anywhere, inside class, outside class, anywhere. Your static variable means class scope. Class scope means this can be accessed directly with class anywhere, with class name anywhere. That is meaning of class scope. You got it, okay. Sunita?
Yeah.
It's not just limited only to inside class. If it is class scope means that the meaning of that is not we should restrict only to inside class, but we can access them anywhere. But only thing is that has to be done with what? Class name.
Class name.
That itself gives us a clear idea. Class scope means these members are not, see, should give a clear idea. Object scope means these are part of object, instance members. And even we can access them anywhere inside class or outside class, but only through what, Sunita?
Test.
Only through object.
Oh, instance you're talking.
Object, instance members, instance
Yeah,
variable,
instance is object.
Yeah, you can call them either even inside same class also.
Mhm.
Okay, if you want to call them inside class, you should use self and call, right?
Yeah.
Right, Sunita?
Yeah.
Suppose if you want to call them outside class, then you should create object and then only call them.
Mhm.
Means instance members, variables are methods. We can call them inside class, outside class, possible anywhere. But only
By
difference is
using the
what?
object.
Exactly. If it is outside, we should use object.
Yeah.
If it is inside, we should use self.
Yeah,
Self keyword. Is that
Yeah.
clear?
Yeah.
Similarly, static members, we can call them inside class, outside class. But if it is inside or outside,
Test.
for static members, always we should call them what with what?
Class name.
Class. I hope this is clear.
Yeah.
So means class scope means these members so are loaded into memory while we load the class itself. Class, when you call this class, when you are executing program, at that time itself class is loaded into the memory. Along with this class, these variables and these methods also gets loaded into memory. So that is why we say them as class scope, and generally these are accessed using class name. Are you following, Sunita?
Yeah. Yes, Manara.
Or am I confusing you?
No, it's good now.
Okay, that's how you have to, and it's not like class scope instance. It's not like we restrict to class. That is not meaning.
Oh,
Class
okay.
scope means they are part of class,
Part of
but
it.
but generally accessed with class only, not with the object.
Mhm.
You got my point?
Yeah.
So that is the meaning of that. It's something like this. Best example is it's like there is a family and one member. Some people are kids. Generally, kids means coming through parents, right? So if kids must exist, parents must exist. I hope this example should be clear. So and there is another category. Another category is what? So assume that class members means something working for that family from generations. You got my point? So if anybody want to access these people, they generally has to call with their family only, right? Like you see some people we exclusively they call with their family names because they always work for that family. And it doesn't mean that they are only inside that house. They can go outside and also do some work, but still they call with that names. But I don't know if this example makes sense or not. But
yeah, I got it actually.
but we can simply understand what is it. Instance members means they are belonging to object and usually with self, and we can access them. Any members of class, maybe static member or instance members. We can call them inside class, outside class, anywhere. But only difference is the way we access them. You got it, Sunita?
Like family doctor and other.
Correct. You can take that example. Whichever things you like, class members means directly you call with class name. You don't need objects for that.
Yep.
Right. But instance members, we should create object. Without object, instance don't come. Instance members don't come. You got it's like a house with some workers in your home. Assume that workers also are some members. Like right? Worker is a member, right? Like family member. Assume that even worker is a family member. It might be male or female, whomever it is. Assume that along with that, again in your home, I mean, what I mean is in that family, there will be kids. Kids usually come through only parents, right? We cannot have kids directly. Is it possible? Suppose this is a quick all different sets of people. A house with some workers there. May assume that they are also part of our family, and also kids with parents. They are also part of family. Suppose I came to your home, some to that family, and asked, will you send that kids to with me? Then what is the what anyone says? If someone should, if we should send the kids, you should take the permission of the parents. Is that clear? Without parents' support, we cannot try to have access to kids. Without parents' acceptance. Like parents are objects here. Without those objects, we cannot have access to kids, which is nothing but instance members. But other members, workers. If it is a worker, you can just go to the family head and ask, we have some work with the so and so person. Can I take them? Then that worker can provide access to that member, that family head, which is class name. But for kids, even family head allows, still the parents should give access. That is object. Just a quick example to get a difference. So here, workers belong to home, to that house, but kids belongs to the parents. Again, there is a categorization here. You get this, Sunita?
Got it, Malaram.
Yeah. But instead of all this, the simple thing is you can easily just differentiate the static members. When you call something with class, that is static. When you call something with object or object reference or self, they are instance. Just remember like that. Finally, that is the idea about these members. Any more questions?
Hi, Manu.
Yeah.
This static variable and global variables both are same. Is it?
Both are not same. Static
No.
variables are something which is declared inside class and they access global at class level, not at program level.
Okay.
Do you get my point?
Yeah.
Suppose there is a big college and in that there is a classroom. Static variable is a leader of classroom. That's all. Not for college.
Mm.
You got it?
Yeah.
So, but global variable is like that college leader. Like, anybody can access him.
So outside of the class, we can use it. Outside.
Which one?
A global scope variables.
Global doesn't belong to class itself, right? See, we don't declare global inside class, right? See, you declare some variable
outside of the class.
Yeah, something a equal to 10. This take some b equal to 100. This is global. It doesn't belong to class itself, but class can have access to D if you want. Suppose you see.
Correct. Yeah, got it.
If you want a class, even can have access to global. You can see now. You can try to print D. I am not sure if it works. Let me just run it first. You can see able to access it, right? Again, you take a normal function. You take a general function outside sub P of some M2. This is just it's not part of class, and then still you can print it. Print off. Okay, D. So run this now. Right, and of course call this M2. Now you run this. Now you can see again still. You can see global means it is a variable which can be accessed by anywhere by any member within class, outside class. If you can call it in a functional way or you can call it in a OOP way. Anywhere it's accessible within that module. That is global.
Yeah, got it.
But static, you cannot call it directly. Suppose this is static variable inside a class, right? If you want to call that here inside this method directly, you say here, let me say test.a. You got it, right?
Oh yeah, got it. This is the class scope, no? This is
static variable, and that is defined here inside class.
Inside the class.
Right, but somewhere directly what I am trying to do, I am trying to print it, but let's see if this works. I'm trying to call here. Of course, we can access it outside using class name, right? It's possible, but still, this is where this A is where this is not in the module scope. simply speaking, to answer your question,
D
global
equal 100
variables,
is the module scope, right? That is
this is in
completely random.
module scope,
Global,
not
which is the
file
global
scope.
global scope.
File scope. But this is in just a class scope. Which scope?
Class scope. Yeah.
So if it is class scope, again, if you want to call that variable here, I think this should work. You can see, but this is where you are again calling from class name. Which class? Test class. So if you should call A anywhere, anytime, always you should call that with that class name. Directly you can't access it.
Yeah.
You got it, right? So this is
got it.
This is class scope. This is module scope, or what we can say is
global scope.
I mean, yeah, file scope. Otherwise, global variables are in file scope. Static variables are in class scope. I hope you are clear now.
Oh yeah, clear. Can you please paste it so that if any.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
So I have one doubt.
Yes, Naveen, sure.
Yeah. Let's say we have created one static variable.
Okay.
And that variable updated through object or reference.
Let us take that example here directly, so that we can discuss it on the example. Okay. Static demo 3. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What do you want to take? You have a static variable.
Yeah, one static variable. That variable we have updated through object reference.
Okay. Through object reference, you take objects now. T1 equal to test. You did this already, right?
Yeah, one object is enough. Just will update. Yeah, T1.a equals to some 30, 40, whatever the value.
Okay, no problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So now after this, so I just updated this value with the class variable or like a normal static way.
Okay. Okay.
So now object reference, this object, whatever we have created, right? So if we call that again, will that be pointed to that old object static variable, or this the changes what we did in the class way?
So now what do you want to do? You want to print what?
Yeah, if we print that T1.a.
Okay.
So like what we get, like a 40 or 50?
No. I think A is T1.a 40 only. I think you'll get. Test.ta is the classic variable, right? So there it will be.
So here, as per our this thing here,
50.
this is getting copied to instance scope. Instance scope means 10 plus 30. You should get 40 here at this time.
Yeah.
Just a minute, Harish. So for now, not here. At this place, it is 40. Now what do you need on that instance? Now you try to increment it. Okay, let's do one thing. Yeah, here it becomes what? When you print this here again, it becomes 50, right? A becomes 50, right? When you say test equal to, this becomes 50. So now what is the point now? So here you get 50. Okay, because this is instance scope.
I think
this is in instance scope. So let's run it so that you get a clarity.
Yeah,
so
I think
line number 13, I guess we'll get 50, I guess, because these changes will also impact the object reference of this.
See at line 80, 8 here, right? Line 8, it will be 40, right?
Yeah, at line 9, it is 40, correct.
Okay, line 11, you see, now 50. This won't update the static variable at class scope, at class level. You got my point? It is updated at instance level. What level? instance level. Now again, once you come back to this is we are updating in class scope. Okay, let's just try to run it and get an idea. So my answer is this. Here, when you print here, it will be still 50. It
Yeah,
won't
at
be
line number 13, I guess we'll also get 50 instead
at
of
line
40.
Line. Yeah, that's why I
Number
print.
13.
Yes,
Because here we
agree,
are
agree.
updated
Yes,
to the
yes,
class
correct,
level, right?
correct. Again, when you are incrementing in static way, that updated value of static variable again copied to instance scope. Correct. Got it right?
Okay.
So
Is this
in both cases, what is the answer now? So how many answers should we get? 1, 2, 3. This 40 is good, perfect. And here also it is 40. What it is getting here?
Yeah, that is correct. Manoram, as you explained, right, all the classic variables share the same one copy memory only. The instance objects, no, what is that individually share their its respective memory locations. So I think whenever the class a plus 40, so we got 50, and t1.a is it is the instance memory location, so it got only 40. Even after 11 test.a plus 40, it is the instance memory location it is printing, a separate memory location. I think if you give print of ID of
Okay, yeah.
test.a,
Yes,
that will be
yes.
better. It will give the memory location which it is using.
So what do you want me to print? Print off?
ID memory location, what it is using.
Okay, memory location will be same. Of course, let me just do one thing. We can get
Manoram.
memory for.
Sorry,
we can
Manoram.
Yeah.
I will
Yes,
leave
yes.
Manoram.
Yeah, Sunita. Sure. I understand. It's
Yeah,
too late.
thank you.
Yeah. So we are just having some, what is that, brainstorming here. So let's do one thing. You want me to print this address?
Address. Then it is if it is sharing the same
See,
location.
See, for all this T1, it will be using same address. Let me run it.
For all T1, T1 and test is the class, right? Class.
Test don't
class
have
and
address.
instance,
We
both are
can't
different.
access. I doubt we can access address of test. We can access that class address. We cannot access. I believe we can access this variable address or object address. You got it right. And second thing is this should be clear to you, right, Naveen? So this is copied and we incremented by 30. So now this 10 is already there, that copied to instance scope, and then 10 plus 30 it became 40. This is clear, right, Naveen? And then Naveen is there? Hello?
Yes.
Seems like he's away.
Manoj.
So next thing, Naveen, are you there?
Maybe he's speaking on mute.
No, he's not there. He's away, I believe.
Okay.
hello?
Yeah,
Yeah, am I
Naveen.
audible?
Yeah, now you are audible. I think, did you get your question? Is your question answered or still any confusion? See here.
Yeah. I mean,
See.
what I understood was, I mean, if we made changes on class level, so these changes should applicable to all the objects, right?
Correct. Actually, just
This
a minute.
T1.a, according to my understanding, this also should be like updated to 50, right? So still it was 40. So that's what a bit confusion.
That's what I think. What I'm expecting, if you just print the addresses, no? So if we both are same,
Yeah,
I
any
think.
address will be the same because we have created only one object, right? In the same object, so it has to.
That's what we can print it, no? Just so that we can have idea.
Harish, We are printing
Even
already.
if it prints
Addresses are
also, like,
getting.
we'll get the same,
Addresses,
because we have
okay,
only
sorry,
one
sorry.
We are
object.
printing
Yeah.
addresses. When you print T1 anywhere, it will be same. The address will be created. This is created only for one. So at this point is clear for me. You are saying that this is incremented to 50 now,
Yeah, correct.
right?
So
Text dot A
initially
equals.
at number 9 is fine, because
Okay.
we are updating on instance level. So like, it only changes applicable to that object. So in line number 11, so we are
I got
instantly
this.
updating.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. But I believe, let us do one thing. So you do one thing. Let's create
I
an
think if you
object.
create one more object, maybe for that object it will be
See, when you create at this time, I believe now when you
yeah, now
create new
if we
object,
now if we like t2.x, we'll get 50.
means this copying is done in the beginning itself. Probably later on, I think it's not getting updated. It's continuing with that copied copy at instance level. So who was it? Let's print it
So
and
you
see.
print the t2.x, yeah,
This
t2.a.
is yes,
Yeah,
Naveen, we are
now
doing
for
that.
this we'll get 50.
For this, we should expect 50, and for previous case, after incrementing, it will be 50, and but still it is showing 40 means what? That updated value is not immediately copied, but might be that copying is done at the beginning of object creation itself, right? That instance
Yeah,
name,
if we run now, we should get 50 for this line number
correct,
17.
right? So you can
Correct.
see.
Okay. Now for the 40, I think we need to explicitly, like, again, we need to assign a variable like t1 dot a equals to
That too, okay, we can do that. That's not a issue.
again
If you
test
say
dot a
t1
like that.
dot a equal to test dot a, this is how we can make update to that. Now,
Yeah, so this way we need
now
to update, I
you
guess.
now you get 50 everywhere. You got it
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Now we'll get 50.
Understood now? But
So
what is
like,
the conclusion? Conclusion is the static variable is copied while creating the object itself. Later on, if you make some changes on that static variable, you can see that the impact is working differently, right? So finally, did you get the conclusion now?
yeah.
See here, at the beginning of object creation itself, it is copying value, and if you try to make any changes on that, still that update is not getting carried to object level. It is at class level, and if you want to make some changes, you have to explicitly do that. Else, it is using that already copied value to instance scope. You got, and whichever changes we made at instance level, that will be used. Fine. I hope this is the conclusion, right, Naveen? So,
Yeah.
Harish, I think you understood this. You are asking something.
Yeah, I would confuse. I think before this T1 dot A equal to T1 dot A plus 30, that having a different address. So
See, address. See again, why you are. See, Harish, I think you got stuck with address. Address will be same throughout this Steven address. Don't get confused with address. Just look into the concept here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Okay.
here it will get 40. T at the 8th one because we incremented
See,
class
one thing, this static, whatever the value in static scope, when we create object,
object
at that
and
time itself, that static, whatever value in static scope is also copied to instance scope. Is that clear?
yeah.
Static scope gets copied to instance scope.
Okay. Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Okay, ante, so what shall I say now? Let me explain in Telugu so that you understand, Harish.
No, I got it. Statics because at that it's just yeah. Okay, got
Now
it.
you have updated this in instance way only. This is not static way.
No,
Then
this is not static.
now what is there in this way in this object now? You have 10.
10 is there.
At this stage you have 10. Now you incremented by 30 on this object, then it becomes 40, right?
Correct.
Now you printed that, okay, we get 40 here. You can see here 40 is printed.
40.
And after that, what we did, we try to increment same static variable in static way. What way?
Static way.
Now we have incremented that a by 40. That static variable here, it will be incremented to how much? 50. So what it is, a is 10 incremented by 40, it becomes 50 here. What is Navin's question is, now once it got 50, this 50 should be copied to T1.a, right? Now it should have 50. Suppose if I print after this, you can see here. Later on,
I got it. What is question?
Yeah, when you say T1.a, just let me finish, Harish, so that I come back. We can discuss. Once after incrementing this, I mean, a static variable in a static way, then when we print T1.a, because this static copy will be copied to instance that object, right? Expectation is we are expecting 50 here. Why? Once this static variable gets incremented, automatically it will be, assumption is that will be copied to the instance or object of that class, into the instance scope of that class. Is that clear?
Yeah.
No, you didn't get it right. So you have incremented this by 40 in a static way. Now that a becomes 50. Now in this object what we created T1, it should have the same 50, right? Is what Navin's this thing doubt. But when we print it, here we have static. Here definitely the static variable has 50. But this instance variable at this stage, if you print it at line 12, you can see now, right? Maybe just add some text here. I put it as a line 12. Okay, that would be easy to differentiate. Not adding anything. Now run this now. What do you have at line 12 here? 40. Line expectation is 50, but it has what? 40. Where is that 40? That 40 is still this same value that is copied previously and incremented. So means what? When you make some changes in the middle to a static variable, then that latest updated value of static is not getting directly copied to instance scope again. Earlier it is 40. After I updated static variable, that same updated value is not as is copied to the instance scope again automatically. Are you following?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So proof is if you print T1.a, the actual static value is 50, but the value of that instance variable is what? Instance variable 40. In T1 object is 40. Means that 40 is which is that 40? The 40 is something which we initially copied and updated. And when we print here after updating static variable, still the instance variable is 40 only. It's not 50. Means what? The change we made on static variable is not automatically
after 11th. What Navin expectation is it should be 50.
50 because we updated static variable. Same should be copied to instance scope, right? But that is not happening. Why? Because that is not an automatic process. So explicitly what we can do, if you want that change to get that change you made on static to be updated, then explicitly we can just add the updated value of that static variable to that instance scope so that now.
Yeah. If we update the value, then automatically we'll get the same.
But automatically whatever change you update on static variable is not getting updated in the instance.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah.
But the first time
what is the static variable? What is the static variables we are updating? It is not reflecting in the this instance variables. So
to get that, because see, conclusion is the changes that you made on static scope are not directly automatically updated in the instance scope. If that should happen, you have to explicitly update your instance scope.
If to make it happen, we manually need to update it
explicitly. Means in the what we are doing here, programmatic way we have to update that instance scope variable. I hope you got it now.
Yes. So both are not same.
That's the conclusion. Both are not
conclusion.
same.
That is the conclusion. Yeah.
Like Balakrishna says, right? Both are not same.
Both are not same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Finally, are you good with this now?
Yes,
It's
yes.
a very, what is that, progressive discussion, but it's fine. So finally, shall we stop here? Naveen, I think
Yes.
you should be fine, right? I
Yeah,
hope
yeah.
Harish is also fine now.
Yes.
Finally,
Yes.
Shankar,
Yes,
Shankar, I think Shankar's audio is not working, I believe. How about you, Shankar?
I think Shankar is typing.
Yeah, I think we will stop here and get back to this again. We'll come up with a new topic tomorrow. Thank you. See you.
Yeah, tomorrow at 8:30.
I'll ping you. If I woke up
Ah.
early, I'll just update immediately. Okay. Maybe
Okay.
8:30 or 9.
Anything is fine for me.
9 or 8:30.
Okay, sure.
In the
Right.
morning, right?
Yes. Morning, Shankar. Morning, Naveen. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.